So still doing that myself, and have a couple of instructors who do that as well. I personally teach aquatic fitness, and I'll be doing that at FitnessFest. So our topic today is the biggest fitness audience just got bigger, and the older adults need us more. And I teach to older adults as well, need us now more than ever. So whether it's live, whether it's virtual, they need us. So that's what we're going to talk about. Like I said, there's nobody better to talk about than the Functional Aging Institute owners and founders. I'll let you guys tell us a little bit more about yourselves, about how you're such awesome international speakers. Cody just was an idea speaker a couple hours ago. They're both great international speakers and have just a lot to offer us. So guys, go ahead and Cody, you want to go first and just tell us just a little bit more about yourself?
Sure, yeah. I got a master's in clinical exercise physiology, kind of that started me off on this career. Thought I was going to go into cardiac rehab. Got to the end of that master's and realized I didn't want to go into cardiac rehab. I didn't like being in hospitals, honestly. But I really like working with older adults, because we ran a cardiac rehab program at our university. So that's really where I started falling in love with older adults. So I decided, well, if I'm not going to get a job, I might as well get a PhD. So I went on to get my PhD. And that just kind of, as I grew through that, really cemented my love for working with older adults. So I've been doing it ever since. So over 25 years now, if you kind of put it back at the start of my master's program, and have enjoyed every bit of it. Along the way, Dan and I have been able to start a fitness facility get together, which he runs and he can tell you more about. Which is just excellent. And a lot of people come and kind of see our place and emulate a lot of what we do. Dan has just really, I'm just going to say, just worked his way to the front of, business experts in this area. I mean, just honestly, he's just right on top of it. So really cool stuff. And I left him to come down and work at a university. So I teach in a doctoral physical therapy program, but I'm not a physical therapist. So I bring kind of the exercise approach to physical therapy and also the older adult aspect. So all the stuff we teach in our certification, I'm teaching our physical therapy students pretty much the same thing. So I'm starting my 10th year here at the university, and we'll get into why kind of older adults do need us more than ever right now, and the mesh, I think, that has to happen now between fitness and therapy with our older adult population coming out of all this. Probably no more time than now is when we need to make those connections. But I love talking about older adults. My whole focus is on functional training, helping people, not just live longer and be healthy, because I started off in kind of chronic disease area, but really how do people be able to do the things that they love to do for as long as possible. That's really what makes life worth living, despite whatever chronic diseases they have. Yeah. So that's just kind of my little spiel, and I'll kind of turn over to Dan. Dan, you can tell a little bit about yourself.
All right. Thank you, Cody. Good to have you. Dan.
Yeah, well, we sort of have different backgrounds in that I actually started out working on my master's degree as a strength coach training Division I athletes. And quickly realized I did not want to do that very quickly. That was not going to be my career path. So I moved to Wisconsin to finish my master's degree and started working at two large big box gym, 4,000 plus members, your typical stereotypical big box gym. Well, here's the 23-year-old youngest trainer on staff, but probably most educated trainer on staff. I was the only one that had a year of master's education. Most of the trainers were certified trainers with no degrees. And so because of that, people kept steering all the, what they called older folks to me. And I was getting clients in their 50s and 60s. And this is back in 2000. I took on a client who was 72 that nobody wanted to touch this guy. He had 4 knee replacements. One knee had been done 3 times. He didn't really have any fitness goals. He just wanted to be able to tie his own shoes. And that really is what kind of launched me into, hey, this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. Because in 4 weeks, he comes in and he's like, hey, Dan, check out my shoes. still to this day, I'm like, that is the weirdest thing a 72-year-old guy has ever said to me, right? Like, it's just, when's the last time you've heard that? I look down, about the time I'm looking down on his shoes, I realize he's not asking me to check out his shoes. I'm noticing that he's tied, laced, actual regular tennis shoes for the first time in years. By the time I look back up at his face, he's got like tears coming down his face. It still chokes me up to this day. He's like, you've absolutely changed my life. And did that in just 4 weeks, you know, and here's someone who didn't get the physical therapy he should have got, didn't get the fitness programming, didn't get the range of motion, didn't get the recovery he should have got. And it was really handicapping his life. He's like, I can't even get a golf ball teed up because I can't bend over and reach down. He's like, I feel like a feeble old man, even though I'm only 72. He knew he was young at 72, but his knees were making him feel old. And so that led me eventually to come to Purdue University, where I met Cody, got my PhD, and the two of us have just continued to cook up new things every year. So 2007, we opened Miracles Fitness. We've trained over 2,000 clients here. I think we're up to about 2,600 people we've trained for all sorts of amazing things. And that led to the Functional Aging Institute. And Janice, you're right. Our second ever Functional Aging Specialist workshop was at your conference. And I believe you were a little nervous when we got over 60 people. Are you sure you guys can handle 62? We're like, yeah, keep them coming. Keep them coming.
Keep them coming, right. Yeah. Good times. Yes. And I remember a month or so ago, you told me how many different countries the functional AIA is in. Can you repeat that for us?
Yeah, I believe we're in 21. We added Taiwan and Israel this year. Crazy. So we're either in 21 or 22. I'm not always keeping track because it's growing all the time. In fact, actually, it might be 23, because when I looked at the world map just today for the new video that Cody released, Brazil was on the map, and I didn't even know Brazil was on the map 2 weeks ago. So there are countries that keep popping up. So we're somewhere in the neighborhood of 21, 22.
That's likely
to
go
have,
up
not remember. Good.
Yeah. We just signed a deal with a guy in Europe to start FAI Europe, basically. And we're actually got our signing an agreement with a university in the Ukraine to take our certification and put it into their curricula for their students that are in their health or exercise science program. So that's pretty exciting. We got a guy coming on in Russia that's really excited about this. And actually tomorrow morning, I'm doing a webinar for physical therapists. The lady that invited me to do it is in Pakistan, and she's gotten people from all over that region. There's over like 350 physical therapists from Hong Kong to India, Indonesia, all that whole area. So we're excited when it just keeps spreading and more people come on board around the world.
You know, it's so exciting for the two of you business-wise, but of course, the base of it is how many people need this and how many people you're affecting and you're reaching globally. That's just, and older adults, whatever you want to call older adults, need us as trainers, as instructors, water fitness, personal trainers, therapists. You know, instead, you go to a box gym or you go even, you know, I won't knock doctors or physical therapists, and they don't get what they need, the functional training. So let's get into our questions. What is the impact of social isolation, loss of activities on the older adult population? What impact of, which one of you guys want to start answering that?
Well, I'll kind of hit that off, because actually one of our students, she's going into her third year, and on third year in your doctoral program, you just do clinical rotations. We don't see them their whole last year, but so she popped in to say hi, and she brought us pins. The pins are wooden pins that her grandfather made one for all of us. And she said he's been making stuff for her for just years. Like every teacher she's had, like he makes a little wooden gift for them. So it's really cool, but he's 86. And she said, before the start of all this, he was an active 86-year-old. He was working out 3 times a week. Most of the wood that he uses for all his wood projects, he chops down the trees on his property, you know, logs it, brings it in, you know, and uses that. So that's pretty amazing. Very active 86-year-old. She said he hasn't exercised in months and months, right? And so the danger is that we take somebody like that who is remaining functional because they're so active, and then they become inactive, and we know what's going to happen. Their trajectory is just going to go down so quickly. Not to mention that people that are kind of delaying the progression or even onset of chronic diseases are going to come out of this thing with those chronic diseases now manifesting in their life that they've got to deal with. And kind of a second story is, I was recently talking to a physical therapist who works with older adults, and she started a group exercise program. You can look up her program. It's called Group HAB. It's a licensed program, and I love what she's doing, because physical therapists aren't doing this a lot. It's once you're out of physical therapy, what do, right? So she created a group exercise program for older adults in her facility for people to transition into. Now it's a pay for service, just like a gym. She has 20 facilities that are now licensing her programs, but I was just asked her about, okay, how did you survive all the lockdown stuff? And she said, well, we made it through, but what we're seeing now is a flood of older clients coming to us with so many issues, right? So many problems that are coming from the lack of physical activity, the emotional toll that has taken place with all the social distancing and the isolation, and you name it, the poor eating habits that people have adopted. It's I think we're in for a pretty rough wave with some of our older adult population who did not jump into the group exercise classes online, did not continue to be active. They're not going to fare this very well, right? We know that they're just when you're 80 and you're 90, your body is just not as resilient when you cut out the activity part.
That's so true. The strength, and of course the balance as well. And I'm sure the falls that maybe possibly happening. Dan, you want to continue with that?
Well, I mean, Cody covered the exercise piece of it. I'll add the social aspect. I think, especially for our non-active agers, our kind of lower independent, maybe even frail individuals, I think we're underestimating the value of a lot of their social activities, right? Their church clubs, their bingo clubs, their bridge clubs, all the things they were leaving the house for, now they haven't been doing. And you start to talk to them and you realize they're not as active as they used to be, right? They're like, oh, I'm so busy. And they have this huge social activity. They're not social anymore. They're losing that human interaction. And so we're going to see that in cognitive impacts. We're going to see that socially. And of course, because they're not leaving the home, the physical activity they're getting just by leaving the home to go play bridge, right? Even if it's not exercise, they've removed that from their life. In fact, I know some folks in their 80s who basically have not left their home because they've figured out technology. They have groceries delivered, their kids are doing everything for them. And we realize you haven't left the home. And so we're going to see, I think, some cognitive challenges. We're going to see people moving from lower independent to frailty really quickly. And that to me is a big concern. A lot of our, what we would call lower independent, healthy agers are just not going to be doing well because they've lost all these activities. Even Kiwanis was an example to me last week. There were many members that were there, but there were many members that stayed home. And I realized if they're staying home and not coming out to Kiwanis, and this is one of their main social clubs, they're not getting that social engagement. They're not getting that cognitive stimulation. So that's going to be a huge issue as well. And so there's more than just even the physical activity piece of it. The socialization piece is so huge as we age, that as people are losing that social connection, the mental health and cognitive aspects, I think, are going to be significant as well. We're going to see people that were 75 and we would have said completely cognitively fit. 6 months of social isolation is going to change that for them.
Right. And depression, I don't know if you've seen that, and also the posts of, people in the nursing homes and who no one can come and see them.
Yeah.
And that is just so sad. And people who are used to like the bingo or just getting together for dinner, they can't even go out. In nursing homes, you can't even go out of your rooms. I don't know. It just depends on the state and all that, but it's been going on in Arizona.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Several states. Indiana completely shut down the ability to visit people in retirement communities, nursing homes, a variety of facilities. And so now you have completely cut people off from their family and loved ones.
Yeah,
Which is really painful.
it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, people obviously have different perspectives on how we should be handling this virus, how deadly it is, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I recognize those different opinions, but like one of my friends, he posted a really good article from an organization, but it's basically about, you know, protecting those who are more vulnerable, and therefore we need to quarantine and isolate and mask and everything. But I think about it also from the flip side. Who is the most vulnerable and which one is the biggest risk, right? I mean, yes, it's a risk for some people to get the virus, but what about those active, healthy older adults who don't have any comorbidities, who are now inactive and isolated, and then other people that are more frail? It's a tough call, but we have to recognize this, the lockdown, the social isolation, all that, it's going to create some long-term, we're not talking quick recovery. There's going to be some long-term damage to population health, especially our older adults, from this.
Absolutely. I've got two questions in the chat. I think we should. Lisa asked, please define senior/older. What's your guys' definition of that? That's a loaded question.
1 year older than Janice.
I think Cody is older, so you know, I mean. He's 50, so I always typically say senior is someone older than a baby boomer, is the way I think of it. So I tend to think of senior as somebody who's 74 and up. But I say that realizing that a 74-year-old might punch me in the mouth if I call him a senior. So I realize you really have to be careful with that term. The reality is most of us don't like to be labeled, and so we have to be really careful, even though we're using the term older. Older really is a mindset. Like, I've never ever thought of Janice as older, but we do talk about people in their 60s as older clients, right? But I don't think of Janice that way, and I don't think Janice thinks of herself that way.
And I would definitely punch you in the mouth if you said that too.
Right. But then we all know people in their 50s who probably think of themselves as old, right?
So true.
So it is very much a mindset, and I think it shifts, right? Like, Janice, you probably think 90 is older, but when you get to 90, you probably won't anymore. My grandmother was an excellent example of this. She turned 90. I'm on crutches limping around. She's running around the room as we're celebrating, right? And I asked her, Grandma, are you starting to feel old? Knowing it's a joke, right? She's like, are you kidding? She's like, ask me again when I'm 100. I asked her again when she was 97. Grandma, are you starting to feel old? She paused. Not quite. Ask me again when I'm 100, right? So it's a moving target, even for someone in their 90s.
Yeah, and that's why we don't, and we specifically did not use the term senior fitness specialist certification. We did not want the word senior anywhere at all because of these negative connotations. So that's why we call it functional aging. Well, that's everybody, right? That's me, that's Dan, even if he's in his 40s, right? That's part of the approach that we want to take. So we identify these demographics as kind of the senior traditional, the boomer, the Gen X. But so I typically think about the strategies and stuff that we teach is most appropriate for the 55 plus, but we also recognize that people younger than that need this stuff. I mean, our partner in China, she's like, you know what? We are aging so bad here. We've got to modify some of this stuff because I'm using these same things with my clients in their late 30s and 40s, and it's exactly what they need, right? So it's aging is obviously not tied to necessarily your chronological age. So we kind of punt on what we consider our target population.
Julia says, okay, I'm from 1967, so what am I? So Julia, you're technically a Gen Xer. And we love having you in the greatest of all generations. So,
well, and someone said I'll take the senior discount. I don't care. Call me whatever you want.
Sure, exactly, sure.
Yeah. Oh, and another question for you, Cody. You mentioned a website for some group program a little bit ago.
Yeah, it's Group Hab, like rehab, but Group Hab. I think it's just grouphab.com. I'm looking it up right now.
Okay, I'll put it in the chat.
Yep, that's it. Grouphab.com.
Cool. Great. Okay. Number 2, how will fall-related injuries impact the healthcare system in months and years to come? And we kind of already touched on that a little bit, but go ahead for that one.
Well, I'll jump in here first. We already have over 1 million visits a year to the ER for fall-related injuries. I mean, that's just a staggering number, 1 million visits a year for fall-related injuries. It's a multi-billion-dollar health crisis. And I'm concerned that in 2021, we're going to see a 20 to 25% uptick in that, because we know the vast majority of injury-related falls are in people 70 and over. And we know those are the people that are most affected by the social isolation, the quarantine, the, hey, don't ever think about going to the gym. I mean, we're basically telling people over 65, don't leave your home. So I expect we're going to see an increase in falls. The fall statistics are going to climb. And if they grow 10%, we're talking about another 100,000 people showing up at the ER next year with significant fall-related injuries. And I think it could grow a lot more than that. When we talk about 6 months or longer of people not being active, not doing their normal activities of daily living, not even going to church or the grocery store, all the sorts of basic things they're doing, they're functionally declining and they're going to be at greater fall risk. And so to me, I think it's going to be a huge issue for 2021 and beyond, right? I mean, the other thing is it's going to have long lasting effects. Somebody right now who's 69 or 70 is probably not at risk for a fall for maybe 5 or 6 years down the road, but we're going to even see increases in that population 3-4 years down the road. Yeah.
Cody, want to add to that at all?
Yeah, I just reiterate, what he said, but I think also the challenge is, so talking about physical therapy, just very quickly, since I've been teaching, I've been in the program, and I've been learning more about the therapy mindset, what people are taught, kind of their approach, and working with some other geriatric PTs that are more cutting edge, that are doing like kettlebell deadlifts in the home of a 90-year-old, right? That are really trying to be aggressive in their approach. The problem is, for the most part, PTs don't train. And so an older adult will go into PT for some of these issues. They are not going to get to the point they need to get, flat out. If they don't get into a fitness routine with you guys, they are not going to overcome this. It's going to create that revolving door. All right, I was able to kind of get up to a certain point, and then they're going to go back down again. So, obviously, I think it's critical that we try to integrate somehow with PT through this.
Yeah, and Brenda makes a great comment. Fall risk compounded by people treated with chemo and risks of neuropathy and all these other things. And Cody hit on that. We're going to see an explosion in sort of these comorbidities, these chronic conditions coming to the surface. And now if people are going to their physician and being put on a second, a third, or a fourth medication, all of that adds to the fall risk, right? I mean, it's a compounding effect. It's not just one thing led to a fall. It's not, oh, you didn't exercise enough. It's a whole bunch of things that led up to that moment. And we know statistically right now, I mean, I've been talking about this, Cody, and I'm hesitant sometimes in groups, but this is probably a safe group, right? But I mean, the COVID numbers are overwhelming. I don't try to minimize that, but when we realize 400,000 people are falling and fracturing their hip every year, and 100,000 of them die within a year of that, that's significant. And if that grows by 20-25% in the next year or two, we're talking about 150,000 people dying within a year of a hip fracture. So fall-related injuries are a big deal, and many of them that we can all have a huge impact on. And it doesn't have to be dramatic. It's not like we got to sign people up for the most aggressive fitness program ever. If they just start doing some things and they reduce some medications and they improve some home situations, we can reduce the fall risk quite a bit.
Right. Yes. I think so much of it with the gyms is, liability, as we all know. It makes me think of when Arizona opened for like 3 weeks, and all the gyms that were open, I'm just going to take the water exercise program because that's what I do. Like none of the gyms except for mine would open their pools. They had everything else was open because they were worried about the older population. Now my gym, because I happen to be there and I'm like, okay, let's start. They all came back. Because they were so wanted it, needed it, the social interaction, the exercise. And so I guess to what I'm trying to say is like, I guess I don't know how we get through that. How do we get through that? How do we, like I said, I think it's the gyms are worried about the vulnerable population, but again, they need us. Everyone needs more activity, but the older adults, which we're talking about now, needs us.
It kind of goes back to the risk versus risk, right? Yeah. Take your risk. There's a risk either way. And so you've got to make a decision. But the thing about, somebody mentioned, it's difficult when you're doing Zoom classes, right? You worry about your participants. Are they going to do their form right? Are they going to fall? Or that, whatever. Well, that's a risk. But is that a bigger risk than them not exercising? I don't think so, right? The biggest risk is them being inactive. And so you would think that Dan and I, working with older adults for so long, we'd be like, no, you got to do it this way, and you got to make sure it's right, and you got to be right there. Let me tell you, you got to get people active. And so if you get people on the more people you can get in online Zoom classes, however you're doing it, to get them active, go for it, because the risk of being sedentary for older adults is just so high.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you 2 examples. We have an 86-year-old who has been Zooming with us nonstop 3 to 4 times a week since we shut down March 16th. We reopened May 26th. She stayed on Zoom. She's like, I want to keep doing Zoom, primarily because my kids want me to keep doing Zoom. They don't feel comfortable with me coming to the gym. And then we had a 92-year-old client, Jessie, who was like, heck no, I'm not doing Zoom. I'm coming to the gym, right? She's like, I got to get to the gym. I need to be on the power plate. To her, the COVID risk was way less than me not getting to the gym, because at 92, if I don't get to the gym, I don't move well, I don't function well, I'm going to go downhill fast. And she realized, I got to get to the gym or I'm in serious trouble, right? She could not wait for us to reopen. In fact, I think she actually begged Johnny to train her on the side before we were reopened. Like, can I come in privately? Nobody has to know. I was like, no, we're not doing that. It's against the law. But that's how committed she was at her age to say, I have to do this beyond the COVID risk. This is so crucial for me to function. And she's an amazing client, right? This was an 88-year-old who used to do push-ups on the floor. And when her toes didn't allow her to do it, we'd put yoga blocks or foam rollers under her ankles, because there's no way she's doing modified push-ups on her knees, right? So still coming in her 90s, COVID or not.
Love it. Great story. That's great. So moving on with, what are the healthier boomers experiencing now that they are more sedentary? We sort of touched on it, but what are the healthier boomers experiencing now that they are more sedentary?
Yeah, I have not really looked into the data on this specifically. I'm making some assumptions. I'm making some kind of best guesses based on, one, what we know of aging physiology, but also stories that we hear from people like the people Dan's working with. So I don't know exactly what they're experiencing. I will say that overall, because this is something actually I plan to look into a little bit more, we do know that things like depression is going up, reported depression, anxiety, suicide hotline calls are going up. My guess is that alcoholism and drug abuse is also going up, obviously, with all this. And that's the thing with older adults, alcohol abuse is a really fine line for some of them. They're kind of keeping it, and have they kept it there over this? Well, let's add a few glasses, every day. So, my concern is with these healthy boomers, is that if they have not stayed, and many of them have stayed in a good fitness program, but if they haven't, there's more than just the physical activity piece that we have to be concerned about, just like Dan was talking about earlier.
Yeah, I'll share one example. Had a a 68-year-old gentleman come in and reminds me I need to follow up with him. I'll probably call him after we get done here because I didn't hear from him this week. And he just shared an example. He's like, I was humming along doing great. I was active. I was exercising regularly. He was doing a fitness program somewhere else. I don't even remember where he was doing it. He's like, COVID hit and I stopped doing everything. I think his fitness facility didn't offer anything via Zoom. He really didn't have any options. So he just stopped everything. And he had recently retired. So he's like, I basically had nothing to do when COVID hit. And within about a month, I fell. He said, I ran downstairs because the FedEx guy came and I missed a couple steps. And all of a sudden here I was at the bottom of the stairs. I don't even know how I got there. Right. And he's like, I realized like, I have got to do something. Like I'm 68, I'm not 88. Right. That's what he said. He's like, I need to start a fitness program. I don't care whether I have to wear a mask or not, or what do I have to do? I'm going to see this was his excuse. I'm going to see my orthopedist to get cleared because he had injured his ankle when he fell. And then I'm signing up for your program. And then of course I didn't hear from him this week. So I'm like, I hope his orthopedist didn't tell him to not exercise.
Not to go.
So, and I'm hearing stories like that from other boomers who basically just quit what they were doing cold turkey. And I think we underestimate sometimes people get into good habits, right? And they have a good habit and they have a good habit. They exercise 3 times a week or 4 times a week, or they play pickleball 3 times a week and they golf and they have all these good habits. And then all of a sudden, boom, they stop and they don't know how to restart those habits and they don't know how to pick up again. And some of them aren't picking up again. They're developing new poor habits. And we're seeing that in a number of different, not just baby boomers, but people of all ages. Everybody. But certainly boomers that were doing very well, that I would have said are aging very, very well, very active. All of a sudden, just boom, they stopped doing things because they were told, stay home, don't do this, don't participate. And I think many of us were lulled to sleep, right? It's going to be 3 weeks. Oh, it'll only be 4 weeks. How big a deal is it? If I just don't go to the gym for 4 weeks, it's not that big a deal. And pretty soon I get used to not going to the gym. My new normal is I sit on the couch and I watch something on Netflix, right? Or I've changed my habits. And all of a sudden 3-4 months go by and I don't know how to change them. And I think that's a huge issue. And it's going to be a challenge, I think, for the fitness industry across all disciplines to bring these people back, to get them back in the fold and realize that we have to break that cycle, right? That they have transitioned out of a healthy exercise habit mentality into something else. They found other things to occupy that time, and we need to change that.
There's a really good point about the habits. We all know how long it takes to build a good, healthy habit. And then, didn't really think of it the way you said it. But I mean, I think in reality, we all kind of knew that without saying those words, but that's really true. So it's such a big responsibility for us fitness professionals to figure out how to get these, get everybody going. So we're going to move on to how can these formerly active individuals improve their health in the midst of gym closures and social distancing? I don't know, maybe that's the same question. Do you want to say anything more about that, guys?
Yeah, well, I'll say, I think one of it is we have to get a lot more creative in how we deliver service. I think some fitness trainers were really hesitant to do online because of the risk or the lack of connection, or, I've heard from one-on-one trainers like, well, I train clients one-on-one and I have to be right there with them. I'm like, well, guess what? You're going to have to adapt because your clients need you to adapt. So figure it out, right? I mean, whatever it takes, they need your help. So change. And so one of the things I've told people now is there's no excuse. We have 3 options for you. You can come to our facility if you're willing to wear a mask. Actually, in Indiana, it's so weird. You have to wear a mask to come in, get your temperature checked, mask in the locker room, but when you're exercising, you can take your mask off. It's bizarre, but that's the state rules. But we also offer training outdoors at a park. So huge social distance space. We can train 8 to 10 people easily. You can spread out 50 yards if you want, right? There's tons and tons of room. And then we train via Zoom. So I don't care what your level of, comfort, safety, security is. there's no excuse. You can figure out the technology, or you can come to the park, or you can come to our facility. And I think we have to be willing to meet clients where they are, and we have to be willing to adapt our services, and we have to get over the fact that, I mean, I hear people say, well, it's not as good as one-on-one training live in person where I can put my hands on a client. So what? Get over it. You're going to have to do, you're going to have to do something with those clients. I look at it this way. The clients came to us because they needed a solution. They need us to help them so they can be active and fit. And so we just have to shift how we deliver that. And we can do that, and we can do it really well, even through technology.
Absolutely. And the professionals who have figured out pivot is the big word. They need our help. We need to figure it out. No excuses. So yeah, we're scared of maybe liability, maybe the Zoom, maybe the technology, but the bigger picture is, and so many of you all on the attendees have already done that. So we all appreciate that. Cody, did you want to say anything more about this?
Well, I'll say the unfortunate thing is when you look at the physiology data on exercise, we know that it takes much less time and effort to maintain than it does to gain. And so we've lost a huge opportunity that if they just would have done something, it didn't have to be optimal. If they would have just done something, they would be at a much higher level. And I think we've got to start taking that approach. That's one definitely changed over the years. Is I believe that what we teach in our functional aging specialists, it's a very individualized approach where you're looking for their deficiencies, and you're adjusting their program. But here's the thing. We know that if older adults do the basic stuff, they'll get good results, right? If you just walk regularly and do simple resistance training machines, that is beneficial. So we don't poo-poo on that, throw it out the window. We might say it's not optimal, but right now we need to kiss optimal, goodbye for the moment. And somebody mentioned about making this a media, bring this to the media national attention. I think you're right. I think it is just a disaster that there aren't enough people raising these red flags about what's happening to these vulnerable populations that are doing nothing. And unfortunately, when you try to raise those issues, it gets drowned out by the COVID alarm, right? And again, it's risk versus risk. Just like Dan's client was talking about, she was willing to take one risk because she knew the other risk was more important to her, so.
Yeah, we have retirement communities that have shut their fitness center down, right? So you have 300, 400, 500, 1,000 residents that have this state-of-the-art fitness facility. There's one in my town, state-of-the-art fitness facility, and their residents are not allowed to use it or access it. I'm like, what now? It's like you're a trapped resident at your own facility. You can't use your own health club, and of course, for many of them, they're at a certain age where they no longer drive. They moved to this place so they'd have a hair salon, a fitness center, a pool, everything. And now these things are closed. We've taken them away. I'm like, we got to get these things reopened for these people. They need to be using these things. And so it's an interesting challenge to say, hey, it is a risk worth taking for most of these individuals. Now, sure, we have to take some precautions and sanitize and distance and all these sorts of things. But to tell people we're just going to shut everything down for 6 to 12 months is not a great solution, especially in retirement communities, nursing homes, where many of these individuals need their daily dose of exercise to keep functioning, right? I mean, that's minimizing their back pain, which is minimizing their medication. It's minimizing their blood pressure needs. I mean, all these things we know that exercise is doing for them. We remove that, and all of a sudden we create a whole other chain of reactions.
Right. Well, so my business is in at least 2 facilities, high-end retirement communities. We are doing water aerobics in there. Not only have they not seen us since the beginning of March, but not only have they canceled all their fitness classes and the state-of-the-art equipment, personal training, and I don't know if they're back to this yet, but they were not allowed to leave their rooms or dine together. So that more lack of socialization, and maybe you've got a spouse, maybe you're completely alone. So we're still not back with water aerobics because they're worried about the risk. I mean, for me, I keep talking about water exercises, but we've got the chlorine, for God's sakes, So Yeah, it's very sad. It's very frustrating, and I'm sure the media is not going to, go to bat because it's not sensational enough, even though it really is to the point. But so anything, our last question, and we'll continue with any chats and all that is, can we agree that we should stop saying old people won't use technology and jump into this massive opportunity for growth and revenue? And so you guys who've already doing it, like, give us some tips and, tell us more about this.
Well, Dan can really speak to this, but let me tell you a little bit just kind of from the data side of it, because I've looked into this over the past few years for several things that we've been doing. And the data is clear that the older you get, the slower you are to adopt new technologies. But it's also very clear that older adults are willing to adopt new technologies if they feel like they need them. The reason they don't adopt a lot of new technologies, they don't feel like they need them. They don't feel like they need Twitter. Like, Twitter? What kind of crap is that? Who needs Snapchat? That's stupid, right? It's a different perspective on life. And so it's not that they're unable, it's that they don't value it. Now that they realize, oh yeah, I value Zoom, I can pick it up, show it to me, let's learn it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so old, I refuse to get on Instagram, right? So the notion of this is it's an ageist idea. And this is how ageist it is. When our facility closed March 16th, I just assumed that all my trainers, who are in most cases much younger than me, average age is about 30, they're 25 to about 35. I just assumed they all knew how to Facebook Live, they all knew how to Zoom, they all knew how to post on YouTube. Not a single one of them did. None of them had ever done a Facebook Live video before. I was like, what is the matter with these young people? It was an ageist assumption of mine that young people know how to Facebook Live. They didn't. They had to learn all these technologies, just like all of our clients did. In fact, some of our clients were better at it than they were. And it was a learning curve, right? And many of our clients are like, wow, this Facebook Live thing is so cool. I can tune in and watch a live workout and we can all be here together chatting. So it really is, it's an ageist question, right? When we say these things, right? And I don't buy it. If people need a specific technology, they will learn it if it has a value to them. So someone at 75, 80, 85 years old, I mean, Joyce at 86 years old is very tech savvy. She's on Zoom. She realizes I need to get a better tripod so I can set my iPad up so Johnny can see me. So she hops on Amazon, orders a tripod for her iPad so he can see her better. And she even joked, she's like, nobody's ever asked to see my full body in my living room via, a camera before. But now that I'm training, Johnny needs to see all of her head to toe so he can train her well. So the reality is it's application and its value. So if you're 90 years old and there's a technology that's going to improve your life, they've figured out how to order groceries, order food, all these sorts of things. So it's not an age thing, it's a value thing. And I had to learn it too. I was shocked that some of my 25-year-old trainers had no idea how to post a video on YouTube. Not only did they have no idea, I really had to teach them. I was like, it's really not that hard. Like, I'm literally showing them on their phone how to do it. Right? I was like, so it's not how old you are, it's how willing you are to learn a new skill, and people can do that at any age. I mean, my kids, right? They're very tech savvy at what they're good at. But they'll tell you very quickly, Facebook's for old people, right? Like my 11-year-old doesn't know how to do Facebook. My 15-year-old doesn't know how to do Facebook, but they know how to do all these other technology things that I haven't learned. So it really is about what can improve your life. And I was blown away last week by the Kiwanis folks. I mean, they had high-tech podcast microphone in the room for me, for the Zoom people. The Zoom people were asking questions live of me. They're on this huge jumbo large, I don't know, it must have been like a 60-inch TV. Very tech savvy for a group that is probably average age 75 to 78 years old. So they can absolutely do it.
That's very cool. And hopefully, like you said, it's the need, it's the want, it's the value, but hopefully also some of these people have somebody who can assist them, whether it's in their facility or in their home or their kids or their grandkids or whatever. So yeah, there's definitely, whether there's
my grandmother passed away at 99 3/4, and she was on Facebook. So when people say, oh, older people aren't on Facebook and all, I'm like, that's not true. They're there, especially if they want to be and they need to be. She was there because she wanted to see what her grandkids were up to, right? She wanted to see my family pictures. She didn't post a whole lot, but she did like, I saw her like things. I'm like, Winnie Ritchie is liking my post. That is so hilarious, right? At 98 years old. She was more active on Facebook than my mom, right? Which was really sort of funny. My mom would be like, how is it that grandma knows all this stuff about your vacation? I'm like, Mom, because she's on Facebook and she's paying attention.
She's following me, Mom, and you should too.
That's right. I didn't say that to my mom.
I just posted a link to a recent report showing that almost half of baby boomers have increased their internet usage since the pandemic started, right? They're just like everybody else. Now, the millennials have increased more, like 60% increase their internet usage. But that's because we know kind of how they operate, right? They are binging all these shows and stuff on Netflix.
Yeah.
Whereas the boomers aren't. It's just it's something that we just can't shy away from. They're there, they're using it, and if there's value, they'll adopt it. And in fact, Age of Majority is a group that we follow. Jeff Weiss, that runs Age of Majority, he was a speaker at our conference, and one of the things that he says here, just kind of a quote from their newsletter: older consumers aren't necessarily early adopters of e-commerce and technology, but they are enthusiastic ones. And I think that's what's important to remember.
Yes. Enthusiastic, resilient.
Yeah.
You know, they want a good quality of life. I mean, who wants, you know, with a bad fall, or you built up your strength and then it's gone because of this stupid virus. So I think all of us who either do work with older adults or want to work with older adults, again, it's the biggest audience. They need our help. Figure out how. I'm sure you can reach out to Dan and Cody for some other ideas. We'll post, you know, your website, and let's talk about what you're doing, FitnessFest, Dan, which is of course in a month, and we've got Joanna, you want to go ahead and put in the chat what workshops that Dan is doing? I know you're doing functional aging circuits, which is all, you know, you do that for us a lot, and
Yep.
So popular. It's always so popular. You want to just chat about that for a minute, and then we'll talk about the other one you're doing as well.
Yeah, sure. So I've actually delivered that one online already, so I have a taste for it. It's definitely different doing it via Zoom, but it can be done. So think of it as a large group training session where I'm going to take you through 4 different functional level workouts. One of the things I think people appreciate about the functional aging circuits is we show you sort of a frail, lower independent level client up to a fully fit client and everything in between, right? And how do we progress or regress certain exercises? And it's a lot of fun. So we'll go through probably 30 or 40 different exercises live, and I will see you because I can see you when we're doing these if you're doing them. So I'll literally take you through most of the exercises live on camera, and they're a lot of fun. Cognified Fitness for Optimal Aging. I think Ryan Glatt's joining me for that one, but I'll have to double check. We're going to be talking about cognitive fitness, a variety of both exercise and different brain health strategies. That's going to be a great session. The Sunday brunch and keynote, next 5 things in fitness. This one I'm trying to look at, so where are we going in the next 5 years, and kind of look big picture, and I'll even bring in sort of how COVID's going to impact that, but where I think the fitness industry is going to be moving 2021 through say 2025, and how you can be ready for that. I think there's going to be some huge opportunities. And then Sunday afternoon, the fitness assessment for mature clients. Basically going to pull a small module out of the functional aging specialist and walk through fitness assessments for mature clients. So things like the 8 foot up and go, the chair stand, the Berg balance scale, a variety of different fitness assessment tools. And that's a pretty hands-on session. It is sort of funny on Zoom to watch people doing some of the fitness assessments on themselves. Normally we do them on each other and it's fun and interactive. But I will have some of you actually do them live on camera. We'll be able to watch you do that. So it's a fun, interactive, hands-on session. You'll probably come away with at least 1 or 2 tests that you can start using on your clients. And we'll even teach you how you can do them via Zoom. Because I know some people are like, well, how do I assess my clients via Zoom? I'm like, well, there's a number of ways you can still test them, right? And you can even time them and see how they're doing and teach them how to time themselves. So we'll go through that as well. I think that's all the sessions. I think I covered them all.
I know we'd all rather be live, but obviously we can't be. This is definitely the next best thing. So you can just hear what in Dan's voice, like how he's going to make this interactive. So you definitely want to try to sign up by August 28th before the prices go up. I did put a code in there just for our Zoomers. Which will give you $25 off at checkout. The one thing that did you talk about the brain health program that Ryan's doing for
No,
FAI
I didn't. No, I didn't. That's Ryan's session. But Ryan Glatt created the brain health trainer for us. And he's going to be doing a Sunday workshop there from 8 to 1, which I think he'll be doing a break so you can attend my keynote. So he's got a break in there. And basically the brain health trainer is an in-depth look at the cognitive piece of fitness. So in the functional aging training model, we talk about 6 different domains of fitness, and cognitive fitness is a big one. And Ryan really goes deep in the brain health training aspect. So how can we help improve someone that has mild cognitive impairment, even moderate cognitive impairment? And how can we help people that don't want to ever slip to mild cognitive impairment? He goes through a lot of different fitness strategies and techniques. And he'll give you a lot of hands-on tools that you can start doing. That's one of the things people like when they come away. They're like, oh, I never realized I could be doing all these activities during my training session while we're doing some of our movement patterns, or even while clients are taking a break. And so a lot of different, and he also gives you a lot of great homework that people can be doing, right? Like simple things that people can take home and be doing at home, or obviously you can do via Zoom and things like that, that really start to help people go, wow, I didn't realize how big a challenge that was for my brain to learn how to do that task, right? It seems like it should be simple, but I'm having trouble with it. So
Right.
I'm really impressed with that course too. It's in depth. It's very evidence-based. He has invested his life in brain health programming. Let me tell you, the guy knows his stuff, and he is, how would you describe his presence? He's got some zeal for this stuff. I mean, he is going to go hard, over deliver. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, he was on our Fit Pro Connection last week. He's so genuine. He's so smart, but humble about it, you know? And yes, he really does know his stuff. And he's such a cool guy, and it's going to be just a really intriguing training. And if anybody needs help figuring out how to sign up for just the Sunday, and you'll get the Dan's keynote, if you'd rather not just do there's lots of options. And if you ever can't find anything on the website, please reach out to me via email or whatever, because I always answer back. That's what I love most about the fitness, about my job, is talking to you guys and answering you guys and helping you feel more comfortable about decisions of signing up, or comfortable about these Fit Pro connections, whatever it may be. It's part of what makes this a fascinating industry, is the connection with each other. And so I'm always happy to answer any questions or help with anything at all that I can help with. So, yeah, thanks for going through the things that you're going to be doing, Dan, at FitnessFest. And we put things on the website. Yeah.
Pam, is Pam Wolf still on here? Yeah, Pam is on here. Pam sent a comment to me privately, it looks like, so you might not have even seen this, Janice, I'm not sure. And I'd love to hear Cody's opinion on this first, because Pam, I have an opinion on it. She says, I have had 6 back surgeries and am fused from T19 to S1. Did you mean to say T19? Recently, I'm in PT currently. I think her real question is, can you explain why my PT is focusing on deadlifts with a kettlebell when I have a fused spine? Is it safe? Question mark. Oh, it was supposed to say, sorry. It was supposed to say T10 to S1. Sorry, you corrected it later, Pam, in the chat. Cody, thoughts on why her PT would be focusing on deadlifts with a kettlebell with a fused spine, and is it safe?
Yeah. I'd actually say I'm impressed that they're doing that, because that's not the norm, to be honest. So the reason they're doing that is because they're trying to teach you spinal stability, right? They're trying to teach you, even because you have a fused area, but the problem is the vertebral segment right above the fused area is now very prone to hypermobility, because as you flex, the lower spine can't flex. So that very next segment tries to flex too much, and then you develop hypermobility problems in that intervertebral joint. So the goal is to teach you, with your new normal of posture and spine, how to stabilize, and posterior chain stability is the place to start. So that's why they're trying to get you to do the deadlifts.
Yeah, and I would say it is safe, and it's something you need to learn, and essentially what Cody's saying, you need to relearn to do it safely, and which it's great that your PT is focusing on that, because I think some PTs shy away from those things, and eventually you're going to have to pick something up. So what they're trying to do is teach you, how do you pick something up from the floor without injuring your essentially new spine, right? Your spine is not the same now that it's been fused. And so they're trying to teach you how to pick things up safely. So yeah, it's definitely safe, and it's something you need to be training, because it's a vital functional thing. I mean, you don't want to get hurt bending over picking up the TV remote, let alone something that might weigh 10 or 15 or 20 pounds.
Right. Can I ask a question? I unmuted myself. Janice muted me. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Well, all along I've done, flexing at the hips, squats.
Mm-hmm.
I was just questioning adding weight to that, if that's because I feel it a lot in my SI joints.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you might have to work on some other areas, right, to help continue to facilitate not only the deadlift movement pattern, but other movement patterns. And so you might have to start to add in a little bit more hip mobility exercises three-dimensionally, in order to kind of keep that improving as you move forward. But it is a new normal for your body, right? And so even when you have done hip hinging and you're trying to stay neutral, a lot of times there's still a little bit of movement going on, and now there's no movement going on.
Absolutely. I also have a dropped foot, so
Yeah.
I've got muscle imbalances. I mean, and believe it or not, I still teach.
That's good.
And I'm a personal trainer, but I just kind of questioned the deadlift.
Yeah, no, it's a good one. My mom is actually, she's 78. She is getting ready to have a similar spinal fusion as well here coming up in about a month or so, as long as the surgeries don't keep getting pushed back. And one of the things I'm going to be following up with her about as she goes through PT are these sorts of questions. What are they doing? Have you deadlifting yet? Because I want her to do those things.
Yeah, and they're doing a lot of abductors, lots of abduction. And the other thing, tell your mom, and I'm going to start a business with this, prehab.
Yeah.
Get ready for that surgery.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Because if you can't bend, lift, or twist, you need to have those muscles available to compensate for that. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Great. I'm glad you guys were on for that. That was a surprising answer to me. So that's good to know. So, okay. Does anybody have anything? I always send a recap. Dan and Cody, if there's anything in particular you want me to put in that recap, I email them any contact or any resources, that link that you put in there, Cody, your court, the FitnessFest weekend, what you guys are up to, FAI is up to and Ryan's up to as far as that. We'll put that in the recap. I'll send it off in a couple days. So just let me know, guys, you know, whether it's tonight or at least by tomorrow, anything else you want to share with our audience. And everybody who, typically twice as many people who are on the call sign up, but they don't show up, but they will get the recap as well. Because sometimes there's just, and it will also be, it's also being recorded because Joanna remembered to push record. And so with that'll be available in a couple of days as well if you missed anything or the people who didn't get to sign in. And then, yeah, and I'll let you guys say a little bit of a closing, but I do want to say next week's Fit Pro Connection will be more about group fitness and virtual trainings, and we've got some great surprise speakers coming up on that. So you'll get an email on that probably Monday-ish. So Dan and Cody, is there anything else you want to share with our fabulous attendees?
Well, I would just say I really appreciate a lot of you that have moved to, you know, online workouts and trying to keep people active. And I think I would just reinforce what Dan says about trying to be creative. Obviously, if you are doing this as a business and you need to generate income, that's important. At the same time, a lot of us are in a good position to just help people. So if you can go down to your retirement village or something and offer to do something for them that is socially distanced and get them to start getting out of their box, and kind of the national media thing you were talking about, be that spokesperson in your community to say, what the heck are we letting happen with our older adults? We've got to do something and try to generate some momentum in your area, in your town. I think that would just be fabulous. We would love to see that.
Yes, thank you for that. That's a good point.
Yeah, I'll just close with this. We don't know if our clients are going to live to 75, 85, 95, or 105, but I fully believe we play a really big role in whether they live really well to whatever that day is, right? We don't know and they don't know what their final day is going to be, but we can have a huge impact on how quality it is their remaining years, whether it's, you know, 17 more years, 27 more years, we don't know. And so you have to keep assisting people to age really, really well, right? And I say run the race to the very end as best as you possibly can and make your last days count. And your last days might be 10, 20 years longer than you even imagined, right? I mean, for crying out loud, my grandmother was doing crazy things in her 80s and she lived to 99 years old. So we have to help people live their remaining days as fully and as functional as they possibly can.
Yes, we have a big responsibility, so let's go out and kill it. Yes.
All right. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah.
Oh, you bet. Thanks, guys. You're awesome. Thanks, all attendees. Feel free to chat and look for that recap in a couple days.